Hi everyone, it's Bryn. Today I'm going to demonstrate for you the way I make banana bread. I've been making it for 20 years. It's a recipe that's been passed from my grandmother to my dad to me. And I've been making it, like I said, for 20 years. It's a foolproof banana bread recipe. If you can dump stuff into a mixer and then dump it into a bread pan, you can make this. It's super easy. So first step, I'm gonna show you, is you turn your oven on to 350. Hopefully you know how to use an oven for this step. If you don't, get some help. Then second step, most recipes call for oiling or buttering your bread pan. And if you don't know what a bread pan is, it looks like this. And you oil it, you get all the little crevices, and then you put flour in there. Well, I don't have time for that. That's a lot of work. It's super messy. It gets everywhere. Anybody who works with flour, it gets everywhere. So I don't like that. And I don't like the texture it leaves on the outside of the bread. So what I do is I take a piece of parchment paper. This is trick number one. Take a piece of parchment paper. Just kind of eyeball it so it fits in your bread pan. So it covers the sides. That way when it's all done, you can just pull it right out. Because if you leave it in there, it's going to keep cooking the sides. It's going to get overdone. It's going to be icky. So this is banana bread hack number one. Then once you do this, you just set it off to the side. That way it's not in your way. You don't bump it. Doesn't fall on your foot because that's no fun. Then second step for this recipe, it's a banana bread. You need bananas. The older the banana, the better. Just not moldy. I like to, my kids won't eat bananas once they start to look like this. So the moment they start to look like this, I either put them in the freezer if I don't have enough of them. This recipe calls for 3 or 4. Now if you have super big bananas, you can get away with 2. This recipe calls for 3 or 4. And if it has bumps and bruises on it, it's going to make delicious banana bread. That's a bonus. So don't throw it out. So we're going to put banana in the mixer. Break it up into pieces. Then we're going to get a paper towel, which I have. I always keep one in my apron because I'm constantly wiping my hands. Get all the banana gooiness off. Then what I like to do is I like to close my mixer and beat the banana just a little bit. That way it makes incorporating everything else easier. So just turn it on like super low. And I'm going to lift this so you can see the texture of the bananas. So you can see in there. You just kind of want to mash them a little bit so they're good and broken up. I'd say that's a good stopping point. So turn it off. Then next step is to add 4 tablespoons of oil. And like all wonderful cooking shows, I have everything pre-measured. And that is also a key here. You don't want to be running around from one end of your cabinet to the other trying to find eggs and flour and sugar. And plus, if you measure it all ahead of time, you don't got to go, oh no, I don't have enough of this, so I probably shouldn't make this. Or I've already started, and now what do I do with mashed bananas and sugar and flour, but I don't have salt or an egg or baking soda? Then what do you do? So we don't want that. So measure everything ahead of time. This is 4 tablespoons of oil, but you can use butter if you really want. I like vegetable oil. It's just easier for me. So it goes right in there. Whoop, not to lose that. Get it all in there. Okay. And then what I like to do is I like to turn it back on so it can kind of incorporate it just a little bit. Just so it's the bananas look oily. And I'll show you what that looks like too. So they're nice and oily, but it's going to make adding everything a lot easier if you just blend it all a little bit at a time. So then let's see, probably 4 or 5. I lost count. Let's just say E. Step E is 1 cup of sugar. 1 cup of sugar. Now, I've tried sugar substitutes. I've tried cooking with Splenda and stevia, and I just don't like the flavor. If you're going to have banana bread, you got to use real sugar. Real white, pure cane sugar. Not brown sugar. Gives it a weird texture. White sugar, that's the key. So we put the white sugar in. Then we're going to add a teaspoon of salt. Not overflowing, not heaping, 1 teaspoon, 1 level teaspoon. And I'm going to show you what I mean by level teaspoon. Because the next step is 1 level teaspoon. And make sure that your baking soda is not old. If you've had it for more than 30 days or you keep it in your refrigerator, don't use it in baking. That's gross. So, level scoop. It's not over the edge. It's sitting right level on top. It's not heaping over. It's nice and level. Use the top of the box right here. Watch, I'll show you. So you see how it's over. You're going to use the top of the box. Pull, makes it nice and level. Then we just dump that in there. Then 1 egg. Just 1 egg. That would be my oven timer, letting me know that the oven is at 350. You want to make sure that your oven is turned on and preheated properly. Otherwise, it's going to throw off your cooking time, and you don't want that. So, now that we've got the egg, the sugar, the baking soda, and the salt, the last ingredient for this is flour. And you need 1.5 cups of all-purpose flour. Now, you know, some recipes, they want you to mix the flour with the baking soda, you know, to make sure that it gets all incorporated. I'm going to lift this up and make it easier on myself. And then I'm just going to dump it all in here. And this isn't one of those recipes where you have to stand back, unless you're doubling it. And then that's just a lot of flour. But since we're making 1 banana bread, you don't have to stand back. So you make sure you lock it down. Then you turn it on. I have it on the lowest setting. And it starts to incorporate. I mean, it looks really floury in there right now. And then once it gets to this point where it starts to almost form a dough ball and the flour's on the sides, what I do is I kick it up 1 or 2 more. Let's go 2. And then I'm going to get a spatula. And, ooh, I don't even need a spatula. See, it already did the work for me. It just pulled it all from the sides. Doesn't that look delicious? It's a little bit thicker than cake. If you make cake, it's a little bit thicker than cake batter. So I'd say this is a good stopping point, and you can see. We'll lift it up right here. It's gooey. It's nice and gooey. So the cool thing about this recipe, though, is some people like nuts in their banana bread. I'm not one of those people. I think nuts are yucky. As my dad said, he prefers his banana bread castrated, which I always think is super funny. But you can add anything you want to this. You can add, I love to add blueberries in here, fresh or frozen blueberries. It's delicious. And so I add blueberries in here. I like to add chocolate chips or butterscotch chips too. And on occasion, cranberry raisins. So I'm just going to get everything off of the beater. Then you remember that lovely bread pan that I was talking about that we put on the side here? I'm going to tilt the camera down. We're going to loosen up this from the base. Then we're just going to dump it all in here. Now, you could also use this recipe for, I mean, it's really good by itself. You don't have to add chocolate or anything to it. I mean, if you like just banana bread, this is a really good banana bread. But you can also, if you don't have an hour to watch this bake, because this bakes for an hour in a bread pan, then you can make it in muffins. Make it into muffins. It makes about 12 muffins, and they cook for 17 minutes each. You know your oven, so same temperature, 350, for about 17 minutes. But check them at about 14 if your oven stuff tends to be a little bit early when you're looking at recipes. You don't really have to scrape the bowl, but I kind of do. I'm one of 6 kids, so we are always fighting over the banana bread. So the more of it you can get in here, the better. And I'm going to use my fingers. My hands are all nice and clean. Just kind of scrape it off of here. It's almost like a frosting consistency. It's nice and gooey. So that's the trick. And then wipe our hands again. And you just kind of line it all up in the bread pan so it's nice and pretty. You can even sprinkle cinnamon on top of here before you break it. Or if you have like a streusel, which is like 1 1 part butter, a little bit of cinnamon, and then 2 parts flour, and then you can crumble that on here and put it on top and bake it. It's delicious. So this goes in the oven till it's cooked in the center. Put a toothpick in there. Unless you bake a lot, I usually can touch the top and tell if it's gooey or not, or wiggly. If it's still wiggly, it's probably not cooked in the middle. But yeah, 55 to 60 minutes. Make sure it's not overflowing on the sides. Mine's got a good gap here on the side. That way it has room to rise, and then you will have the most delicious banana bread. It is amazing to eat it hot with butter, and it's my favorite thing to eat, especially in the morning, or for dessert, I'll put whipped cream on it. That's really good too. But anyway, so we made banana bread. Super easy. You don't have to separate the stuff. It goes right back in here. You know, everything gets dumped in here, and it's good to go. You can add more bananas, but you need at least 3. If you're going to use the smaller bananas, definitely 3. And the riper, the better. You don't want to use green bananas in here. It's going to be weird. You're going to have to really beat the bananas down. But as long as it has a consistency of frosting, then you should be good to go. And if it doesn't have the consistency of frosting, you can add another banana to it. That'll help. Add a little bit of oil or butter to thin it out. It just means you added too much flour. But yes, it should be amazing. And that is my wonderful recipe for making banana bread. Thank you and enjoy.